Now hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are back in a random city. And today we are in a very large one. Yeah, welcome to Sao Paulo in Brazil in South America. Today it's time for another episode of my little Discovering Very Interesting Places All Around the World series. And as I've already said, we are in Sao Paulo in Brazil. Now, this city has quite a lot of airports actually. And today we are at Campo de Marte airport.
Campo de Marte.
And as you can see already, this is right in the middle of the city, like genuinely. Yeah, this was the first airport that was built here in 1919. Yes, South America has quite a long history of aviation in general. Didn't they invent that stuff as well? I mean, 1990, that is very old for an airport. And you can tell that age definitely, but more on that later. Now, back in the 1990s, you know, planes weren't that large as they are today, so this runway is relatively short for today's standards at 1500 meters. This is not a long runway, meaning that this plane can only be used by Cessnas, which we have right in front of us here, or maybe even some smaller private jets, or maybe even some big airliners that we're gonna try out later on, of course. Let's go ahead and take off first. Now, we are very close between buildings here on the left of us. These are actually quite tall as well. And yeah, this airport is only 6 kilometers away from the actual city center. Everything is very close to this airport. Down here we have all the hangars for the general aviation planes. Probably there are quite a lot of flight schools as well, as you can see here. Aeroclube de Sao Paulo.
Aeroclube de São Paulo.
Aeroclube. And well, yeah, this airport works. In total, over 118,000 people fly here per year, with an aircraft operation count of 72,000. That is actually very good. 70,000, yes, this is quite a busy airport as well. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is like the major general aviation or business aviation, if you will, airport of Sao Paulo. Now, while we are at it, here is the other airport of Sao Paulo, which is also right in the middle of the city. This is actually quite a common thing in South America. The airports are commonly located pretty much in the middle of the city, which always has different reasons. Now, the Cessna, it obviously can fly here without any issues at all. So let's move on to a bigger plane as well. Now, besides all that Cessna general aviation traffic, I can believe that there are a lot of, you know, private jets operating there as well. So, you know what? Let's actually try the Challenger 300 from Bombardier. This will actually be quite an interesting landing, because the Challenger 300, it needs quite a long runway, even though I think this runway is long enough to at least legally be able to operate that plane here. Now, another very big portion of traffic here at this airport is helicopters, obviously. You know, that's commonly the case with airports that are located right in the middle of the city. Something that I do appreciate is that the runway is not super duper close to the buildings here of the city. Alright, never mind, this is actually pretty close. I mean, we have these trees that could prevent you from crashing into all these buildings in case of an overrun, which is fortunate. And right now we are running at very low frames per second because my computer really doesn't like to render all of these buildings. Jesus. But let's just try making it. Alright, that was pretty hard. But let's try stopping as well. That would be very nice. Alrighty. That was fine enough. Obviously, the Challenger 300 is a medium-sized private jet, so nothing special, I guess. So this worked out perfectly fine. And yeah, not gonna lie, flying here at this airport is pretty fun here with all the buildings in the background. You know, that actually really makes a very nice background here. But let's move on to a bigger plane, maybe even an airliner. Let's maybe go for Embraer, because that plane is also Brazilian and that kind of fits. Let's try something like the E145. Now, this is one of the smallest regional jets that there are these days, so this should work out as well. Alright, welcome aboard the E145. Yeah, definitely. Alitalia does transatlantic flights to Brazil on the E145. That makes sense totally. Now, you wouldn't see airliners like this actually operate here. Maybe this plane would already be too big to operate here as well, you know, because there isn't a lot of ramp space either. And also right now there are no scheduled flights operating here. There's really just business and general aviation that flies here, so no airliners. But let's see if airliners can still land here. And again, we are running at like 10 FPS. I'm really sorry about that. You know, I haven't used the E145 in a while, so this is quite nice. Let's come in for a nice landing as well. Alright, that was a very loud touchdown, but this is gonna be a pretty successful stop, I guess, I hope. Now, the E145, this is not a very big plane either, obviously, so no problem about that. Yeah, that landing worked out perfectly fine, so yes, Alitalia, you can fly here from Italy. I'm pretty sure the E145 has enough range as well, right? Now, let's actually move on. Let's actually stick with a Brazilian plane, the E195, which is the bigger brother of the E145. Kind of makes sense because, you know, the name, right? Yeah, whatever. Now that will actually get a little bit more interesting, I guess. All right, welcome aboard the way bigger E195. All right, so the runway is ahead, and there are also buildings ahead, which I'm not very comfortable with. The approach angle for this airport is very low, actually. You know, compared to other city airports like London City or something. This is very, very close, right above some houses. Oh wow. And also there are some trees here right next to the approach path. Alright. Alright, that was a landing. Let's get this plane stopped now, which we have done very much successfully as well. No problem about that. Now, let's move on to something like the 737. This is the MAX 10, by the way, which is a whole lot bigger than the E195. Let's see how that one performs here. Now, yes, according to the populates, we really have to get low down to the ground, which is something that I'm not very comfortable with. You know, flying very, very close above these houses is a little risky, I would say. I mean, you know, in general, there are a lot of safety concerns with having an airport right in the middle of the city. We have already talked about that a lot of times on this channel. Oh, that is so close above the highway, Jesus Christ. All right, and now the landing. Now it's time to test out the bad landing capabilities of this airport. You know what happens if you do a messed up landing? Well, you also overrun. Obviously, that shouldn't happen for a safe operation, which it didn't. As you can see, we touched down without any issues with 180 knots, which is super duper quick. That was a really bad landing, by the way. And just look how close we got to this highway here. I'm not very comfortable with that. But here we go. This was the landing. Not a very good one again. This was kind of to simulate what would happen if you had something like a flaps failure and had to land here. Now, in that case, you would obviously divert to another airport with a longer runway, but that's another story. Now, it is time to move on to a bigger plane, of course. That is gonna be A350? Why not? Let's try taking this plane off. Now, welcome aboard the A350. Let's for once try doing some kind of takeoff. I think this is gonna be pretty successful. Even though we have had some issues with the A350 before, we have overrun this plane quite a lot of times. It does need quite a long runway for its size. I mean, no, the A350 is not a small plane, but it needs quite a long runway. Now, let's go ahead and take off. A toga. Let's release the brakes. This is a very static takeoff. The acceleration of this plane is actually not too bad, so we might have a chance here, I guess. Alright. 100 knots. At around 140 knots, we can take off. So we have 120 and 140 on the clock. There we go. That is a takeoff. Let's not crash into the trees as well. It was actually kind of close. Oh, wow. Alright. And I'm not very comfortable with these taller buildings here. But this was successful enough, I guess. So no problem about that. And again, we are struggling with frames per second. That is really not good. Now, let's move on. 777 landing, I guess. The 777 is quite a little bit bigger than the A350. So this will be a very interesting landing. Let's come in a little lower on the glide slope, I guess. Yeah, totally good idea. Now, this is the first plane that I would think could struggle to fly at this airport, or at least somewhat fly at this airport. Now, we have done a very successful landing so far, even though we are struggling to... Oh, Jesus. Alright, this is gonna be an overrun. Alright, and our 777 is now functioning as a car, so no problem at all. Let's check how close we were to the bridge again. Oh yeah, very much close. Wow. And this is the landing. You know what, I've done worse landings, honestly, in the 777, even though it was not successful anyway and we ended up overrunning, but that's another story. So, now what can we say about Campo de Marte Airport in Sao Paulo? It is pretty nice, even though there are some safety concerns involved as well about having an airport in the middle of the city, obviously, with quite a short runway, and especially if you only have, you know, non-professional pilots, like general aviation pilots flying here, then you can run into some issues very, very quickly. Also, have I not mentioned this very, 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 very small taxiway? Jesus Christ, what plane is gonna fit on there? Honestly, not even a Cessna fits here. So, yeah guys, thank you for watching today's video, and I'll see you tomorrow. As always, good night.